Greetings and welcome to another video in our series about Elite Dangerous. In this episode we're going to look at the external camera and ways we can use it. However, before we get into the video, remember to press the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. And if you have any thoughts or suggestions, drop a comment below. If you've been playing Elite Dangerous for a while, you may be used to the external camera and have already set it up in the bindings. But for those who haven't, that's where we're going to start. Let's pop into the keybinds and have a look. And now under the general controls, and there's two sections in here you need to set up. The first one is the camera suite. There's 3 keybinds to get into the external camera. One for the ship, one for the SRV, and one for on foot. Now I've set my keybind to be the same for all 3. It just makes it easier for me. We then can go through the camera modes. You can go backwards or forward through the cameras. You've got the enter free camera mode, and that lets you move around like you're flying a drone. And then we've got the preset camera positions. And in the ship and the SRV, you've got all 10 positions. On foot, it only goes up to 6, if I recall correctly. And we'll look at those later. And then you have the free camera mode. This is where you can actually fly the camera around. You've got an option there to toggle the HUD on or off. That shows you the controls of what keybinds do what. You can increase and decrease the speed of the camera. You've got your forward axis there, which lets you fly the camera forwards and backwards. And you can set the throttle range there. Forward only throttle reverse, which is a bit of a mouthful, but as it says there, when the throttle axis is set to forward only, this will allow the reverse movement when toggled in place of forward movement. Never needed that myself, but it's there. As you can see there, I've got move forward and backwards set up on the keyboard as well as on the HOTAS. Then you've got your lateral axis, which is your side to side. I've also got that set up on the number pads. Then you've got your lift axis, which goes up and down. Now these two I've never needed to set up before, because on my HOTAS I've got analog thumbsticks, which is great for moving around with the camera. Might be worth a try if you haven't got something like that. And you've got the mouse axis on and off if you wanted to use the mouse to fly around instead. Now the pitch axis I've got set up on my flight stick, and the yaw axis is also on the flight stick with backups on the keybinds in case everyone needs to do anything with that maybe. And again, the roll is on the flight stick as well. This switches between controlling the ship, SRV, or yourself on foot, and the camera. This lets you detach the camera from a specific point. You can fly the camera to an area and detach it, and the camera will stay fixed there while you can fly, drive, or run around. Then you've got the option to then exit the free camera. And we've got the zoom and blur toggle. And this switches between the zoom mode and the blur mode. And we'll look at that later. And then with these two, we can either increase or decrease the zoom and or the focus, depending on which mode we're in. And here we can increase or decrease the blur. To be able to change to the focus mode, you do need to have the depth of field set to either medium or high in your graphic settings. So those are the binds. Now how do we use them? So we're back in the ship and we need to go into the camera mode. So I'm going to press my hotkey. And now we're in the camera mode. Now at the moment, if you look at the top left, it says ship control. So anything I try and do in here will be controlling the ship. At the bottom left, it says enter free camera. So if I press the button on my HOTAS, it changes the options now. If I move my flight stick, I can pan around, and roll. If we use the thumbsticks I've got set up for the forward and backwards on the camera, I can move in, I can move out, left, right, up and down. So I can now use that together and I can fly around like a drone. Also got the zoom out and zoom in. It may take you a while to get used to the controls, and if you need to tweak them, you can go back into the keybinds from here. So we've got the control mode done, and if I want to go back into the ship control mode, I can just flick a switch, and then it says ship control in the top left again. Flick it back, I'm in camera control. So on the bottom left, it tells us what we've got bound to what. I can change between the zoom mode and the blur mode by pressing that key there. And we can now see on the left and the right hand side things have changed. We've got a focus and a blur. So if I find some biologicals down here, which I know I've got around somewhere, go back into that way for a second. I found some biologicals on the planet's surface. This case is through Texas. What we can do, we can have maybe a little bit of fun. So if you're going to take a screenshot, what we can do, we can go into the focus blur mode. We increase the blur mode up to maximum. Then it's gone out of focus now. And now we can use the focus to make things sharper, either in the foreground or the background. If we go forward, now you have to be a bit careful with this because after a little bit it speeds right up. See, it blew past the blue text there, so if we bring it back a little bit. You know, if we look, we've got the through text pretty much in focus. And if I hide the UI by hitting another keybind, we've got that kind of in focus. And we can tweak it a little bit. Now, we don't have to go back into that, as long as you know which keybinds are which. So that's at 577 and 100. If I do that again, I can go, I'll bring it back a little bit maybe, and bring the blur down a little bit. You can just see the background changing as I decrease the blur. And if I go back into the overlay mode, you see things have changed. So now I've got the through texture nicely in focus and the anaconda nice and blurred in the background. And if you wanted to, you could take a nice picture of that and maybe end up winning stellar screenshots. Let me go back into there a second. And now if I'm going to go back onto 100% blur, change the focus and go try and get the anaconda in focus and have everything else out of focus. If you watch, you can see the focus mode fly across the terrain. There we go. The anaconda's in focus, and I can lower the blur a little bit. And the through text is now out of focus. And that's what you can use if you want to take screenshots to give yourself some cool effects. And if you want to reset that easily and quickly, out of camera mode, then come back into it again. They will reset. Now the other thing you can do with the camera mode, and this is what I use it for a lot, is finding things on the surface of the planet. In this case, exobiologicals. I'm going to hide the UI. I'm in camera mode, and I can move around now. If I look there, I've now found some tussocks. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. I can slow the camera right down. And by using my analog hats, I can be very, very precise with what I'm doing. Which is also good for screenshots or maybe videos if you want to do some panning. You can do things like this. All about getting the controls smooth. So I can use the camera mode to find exobiologicals. And where's the... There was one around here a minute ago, wasn't there? The fruit texer. Okay, so I think it was over here somewhere. Zoom in again. You can pan around. I say you can fly it like a drone. And then you can hopefully find things on the ground. Sometimes it gets... There you go, found it. There you go, I found it. Now, things like the fruitexa, for example, can be really awkward to find just by flying around. So what I tend to do is I'll park the ship somewhere, either on the ground or in the air, and I will then use the camera to fly around and locate it. So the other thing you can do is if I zoom back out and bring the camera all the way back out, you get a quieter viewpoint. So over there, that's one patch of fungoida. There's another patch over there. And if we go back even more, we might be able to find another patch somewhere. You do have a limit on the cameras how far you can go, but it can be very, very handy. Especially when you want to look behind bridges and stuff. There you go. There's another patch of fungoida over there. So that's the 3 I need for my exobiology. Now we know roughly where they are. What we can do, we can come out of the camera mode and we'll go into the SRV. We can go and get those 3 fungoida. But before I do that, I want to show you something with the detaching the camera. I know the fruitex is over this way somewhere. I'm just going to move away from the ship a little bit. Go into camera mode. Around here somewhere. Okay, so it's there. So we found the fruitexa. What I can do now is, and this does take some practice, is I'm going to slow it down a little bit, and I'm going to go there. So this is where I want to drive to. I want to drive to this particular location. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do SRV control. I'm going to put the stabilizer on, and I'm going to detach the camera. You can see how the overlay changes there. Turn off the overlay. And now I can, as you see, control the SRV. I'm going to, and I like to use drive assist on because it acts like a cruise control. So I can now drive the SRV to the camera position that I want to go to. As I say, it does take a little bit of practice because you have to drive in reverse, as it were. There we go. Oh. And I'm now exactly where I want to be, so if I needed to get this particular biological, I could hop out and sample it. We'll put that back on there for a second. Bring up the camera control, and I'll turn the stabilization off. So now I want to go and do the fungoider. We know there's one over there. And this is another way I use the camera. So I'm going to line myself up there roughly. So I know I want to go that direction. And I've got the SRV there. I can just see, yeah, so I want to go that way. Go down a little bit. Turn off the overlay. Control mode. Now I've got the stabilization off, and you'll see how horrible that is. Now if I turn it on again, now I need to just redo the camera. And engage the camera mode again. I'm going to drive forward. Now I'm using, as I say, drive assist, which acts like a cruise control in a car. So all I have to do is set the speed either to 12.5 or 25%, and I don't have to worry about it. I can just use the steering on the SRV, and I can see where I'm going. I've now found some tussock there. I'm going relatively slowly, and I can slow down a bit more if I need to. Speed up a bit more. And you can still use the boosters on this as well if you need to. If you've got a rock or something you want to jump. Using the boosters. You can't see obviously the charge on them, but you just need to use gentle movements. If you go too fast, you could end up spinning out of control. Alright, okay, so now where I wanted to be, so I'm going to stop that for a second. Come into the camera mode. Now that's going to be more than 300 meters away. Come out of there, get out the buggy. I can take my first sample, and I need to go to the next two, and I can use the camera to get a bearing on where I need to go. I'm not showing you how to do exobiologicals in this video, but this is a good use of the camera. This happens sometimes if the camera gets blocked. We need to go back out again and then just move a little bit. Now I want to go over this way. We can now do, for example, and I'll speed this up in editing so you won't have to sit and watch all of this. And now I've got to the next set of run guide I need to do. So I can now get out and take that sample. And I just need to do one more. Now I mentioned earlier about the camera positions. So while we're out in the SRV and out on foot, a good way of showing you. Now if I go into camera mode again. One is the default position. Then you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But on the foot you don't have 7, 8, 9, or 10. They are all preset and you can't change them or set your own. Now when you go out of the camera mode and go back in again, it remembers the last one you were in unless the game resets it by changing mode, which sometimes happens. So in the SRV in the ship there's 10 camera positions. This is the default one, the back view, and we can go front and then another front another front, looking out over your shoulder, looking at you, down low, back, front again. They're slightly different than the ship, and I'll show you those in a second when I get back there. Now, when you're using the camera in like this, you've got to be careful about the sudden drops on the other side of ridges. And by using the camera, I've been able to find the 3 fungi that I needed to get my biological sample. And now, luckily, I'm here and I can get another one. But I won't bore you with all the rest of this. I'll go back to the ship and I'll show you the in-ship camera modes. We're back in the ship. We go into the camera mode. This is the standard default rear view. We can go forward, ship front, co-pilot, co-pilot 2, co-pilot 1. This will change depending upon your ship and how many co-pilots each you have. Looking at your own commander, another commander view, on the back of the cockpit, cockpit front, ship below, ship back. And there you go. That's the free camera in a nutshell. I find it incredibly useful, especially when I'm hunting for exobiologicals or anything on the surface of the planet. But you can also use it to take some incredibly good screenshots. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. Take care and toodles.